We now know that the CDC doesn't want to comply with the law requiring them to give us an answer about these documents. I mean, they could say, oh, we don't have any documents, right? We did a search and we don't have any documents. Instead, they ignored the request and are stonewalling. Now, one of the big issues with COVID has been, as I said, not necessarily the threat to public health from COVID, but the threat to your freedom as a result of COVID. And one of those has been the suppression of speech as it relates to discussion of the government response and other matters as it ties to COVID. Now, big tech has been suppressing many people as it relates to COVID, and it's political. You're outside the left-wing agenda on COVID, what their agenda items are. You question the lockdowns, you question treatments, you question vaccines or anything else, you're subject to being suppressed. And it's not to say I question everything about COVID, but, for instance, raising questions about the potential preventative treatments for COVID could get you banned. And certainly I've been locked out of Twitter over an innocuous tweet about hydroxychloroquine that had said nothing about COVID. So they're using that as an excuse to target conservatives, and the left has decided that if you object to lockdowns on COVID, you're a terrorist. I'm not exaggerating, and so that's been the justification to suppress your free speech online. So what Judicial Watch has done is we're following up on our suspicion that I think, based on our experience, is going to be borne out, that the government's also working with big tech to suppress dissent on COVID. And we have filed a lawsuit against the Centers for Disease Control about their communications with big tech about COVID. And specifically, we had asked back all the way in September of last year for any and all records of communications between CDC officials and/or employees, and employees, agents, and/or representatives of Google, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube concerning, regarding, and relating to COVID-19 related content on company platforms. Such records include, but are not limited to, any advice or instruction issued on disinformation related COVID-19. So they were required to respond to our request by October of 2020, October 29th of 2020, and they haven't. So we sued. We sued in federal court because the public has a right to know about the CDC's involvement in big tech's outrageous censorship of Americans, including doctors, by the way, who raise questions about the COVID-19 response. And the Biden administration now should stop. Of course, the deep state under Trump, it's not going to change much under Biden. It's going to get worse because anything they're doing is going to have the explicit and implicit endorsement of the political appointees of Joe Biden. So the Biden administration needs to stop stonewalling the release of the records about any CDC role in suppressing the free speech of Americans. Now, the argument that some have made defending big tech's decision to play doctor by deciding what is and is not credible discussions related to COVID is that it's a private entity. They can do whatever they want. Well, A, it's not technically true. But B, it's probably not actually true in the sense that the government is likely involved. And to me, I think what's going to be exposed is the connection between government officials and big tech suppression, not only on COVID, but other matters as well. And so we want to know whether CDC and big tech were working together to suppress the First Amendment rights of Americans. This is why I love Judicial Watch, because we're trying to figure out and come up with angles to expose the corruption behind big tech censorship. And by corruption, I mean, we now know that the CDC doesn't want to comply with the law requiring them to give us an answer about these documents. I mean, they could say, oh, we don't have any documents, right? We did a search and we don't have any documents. Instead, they ignored the request and are stonewalling. And I know there are documents based on my experience. And I know they have something to hide based on my experience. So to me, the fact that they're hiding this is, it's obviously evidence of a cover-up. They're not complying with the law. So now we have confirmation that the HHS CDC doesn't want to comply with the FOIA law about the suppression of First Amendment rights of Americans. Was there collusion between CDC and big tech to suppress COVID dissenters? Government's not giving us the information, so we're in court about it. And the fact they're not giving us the information, to me, suggests they have something to hide. Maybe you have a different view, but I'd be interested to know what you think. So again, this is what I love about Judicial. I know I keep on praising Judicial Watch, but no one else is doing this. No one else is doing this. Congress is yelling about suppression. I don't mean to toot my own horn, but I am a major conservative voice on Twitter, and I've been locked out. Judicial Watch has been censored. And no politician has done a thing about it. We may do something additional about it. And Americans, in countless numbers, have had their free speech rights suppressed by big tech in a dishonest and, in my view, illicit and illegal manner. And we're doing something about it by trying to figure out who else is behind this. And we think the government's behind it. And if we prove it, boo. So I'll let you know what we find out when we find it out. And so stay tuned.
Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel to catch all the latest news from Judicial Watch.